without further ado, let's go to our demonstration for tonight. We have Mr. Tim Hatch on board to demonstrate. He's going to be doing a demonstration on his machine, on his process, on how he's going to be making his little item that he's going to be showing us off. If you have any questions or comments about what he's doing or how he's doing something or why he's not doing something, please keep those questions and comments till the end of the demonstration, when Tim will be able to address them at that particular time. So without further ado, I am going to mute everybody. Tim, you will unmute yourself and we will go from here. All right. Here we go. All you, Tim.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Can everyone hear me?
Hear you great.
Yes. All right. So tonight's demonstration is going to be about making this little ornament here. I call it a cross-drilled Christmas tree ornament. And you see the center of it just has a location where I can put different items. Now, I got the idea, and I was blessed and fortunate enough to go to Walt Wager's birdhouse ornament turning, and I gave Walt a piece of wood and SWAT, and he gave me this beautiful ornament here. So the ornament's a combination of Walt and another gentleman up at Bay Lake Woodturners up in Wisconsin. I'm a self-taught woodturner. I started watching Eddie Castellan and Mike Peace and of course Carl Jacobson and a few others to learn how to do this. And I couldn't see wasting all those little snowflakes like the guy up, but running on a cheap little Excelsior lathe that was my son's, and I just really couldn't afford to stack 3 or 4 of these laser cut snowflakes together and then turn them off. So I came up with this concept, basically using Walt's concept of that hollow drilled bird cage, and the other guys, I think his name's Darren, if I remember correctly. And I came up with this concept on how to build a base to mount different items. And the nice thing about the items, Hobby Lobby or Michael's or wherever, they've got all kinds of little applique stickers, paper poinsettias, glittery snowflakes, Christmas trees, things like that you can stick in the middle. So the very first arts and crafts sale that the wife and I did, I was selling those things, or she was selling those things for about $35 to $40. You see that piece of wood there? It's got some turquoise inlay in here.
Can you hold it back from the camera just a little and hold it steady?
A little better?
Yeah, now we can see it.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah. So it has a little turquoise inlay, and basically any chunk of wood that, in my mind, wood was hard to come by. I know it grows on trees, but for me, when I first started turning, coming up with this stuff was kind of difficult. I didn't have access to a lot of stuff, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money on it. So that's really how the concept came about. I'll shut my mug and I'll start talking about how we're going to do that. I'm going to switch cameras and we'll talk about the process. Now, I did mail out to Dave Rhodes and Dane Chandler this morning. Or this afternoon, I emailed a copy of kind of my instructions on how I did this. So that should be available on the website later on. So
yes.
Without further ado, let's get to turning some wood. So what I have mounted in here is a block of wood. It's 1 3/4 inch by 1 3/4 inch square. So
Can you tilt your camera up a little bit?
Yeah.
A block of wood.
Folks, Tim, can you raise your camera about an inch?
Yeah, I will in just a second. So I just got a square block of wood. It's 1 3/4 by 1 3/4. And what I'm gonna do, let me adjust that camera there. That
Perfect.
better?
Perfect.
All
Yes,
right.
perfect.
So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna, on the end grain, I'm gonna go ahead and drill a 3/8 inch hole all the way through. And like I said, I'm not trying to plagiarize Walt, but sometimes plagiarism is the best form of flattery. And he really impressed me with the way he was doing things. So heels up. Make sure my bit's locked in place here. And
What size bit is that, Tim?
again,
What size bit? What size hole?
3/8 inch.
Thank
So
you.
the concept is I'm drilling all the way through in grain. All right, so I drilled a 3/8 inch hole all the way through. I have a couple different ways of doing things here. So a 3/8 inch hole, if I'm doing the cross drilled versus a hollow drilled using that same 1 3/4 inch, the bit size is going to be a little bit different. So if I'm doing this type of ornament here with the cross drilled with a pillar in the center, that's going to be a 1 1/8 inch. And again, this just depends, the size of the bit you use depends on the type of ornament and the size of block you start off with. That's the only difference between mine and Walt's. Now, I've already drilled that 1 3/8 or that 3/8 inch hole. Now I'm going on side grain. And for Walt's hollow birdcage ornament, he drills halfway through, flips it over, drills halfway through, flips it over. So he's drilling a hole completely through. On this one, I'm actually just stopping as soon as I bury that shoulder of the bit. Then that gives me a pillar, and I'll get to that in a second. All right, so this bit's locked in. Speed's about 400 plus or minus. Now I got it buried to the shoulder, and I'm going to back up. And if you're making that birdcage type ornament, you're going to drill all the way until you can see your bit through that 3/8 inch hole. You'll see the shadow through there. Okay. So right now I'm going to stop the lathe, and now we just.
You're doing it this way because you're inserting something in there. Is that right? There's nothing in the middle for people to see.
That is correct. So what I'm going to
thank
end
you.
up with is something like this. It's not drilled completely through. I end up with a pillar. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and drill this one since I got it on the lathe right now. And this is real time. It doesn't take long.
And what size bit again is this?
It's a 3/8.
The first hole was 3/8. This hole here is 1 1/8. Right. So I drilled those two sides. Now I flip it over. One thing, if you guys are doing production work on this, I noticed that a lot of times chips get stuck in here in your jaws, and sometimes your workpiece will get a little off-centered because you'll have chips in there. So it's up to you to blow it out. And again, I'm just burying it to the shoulder. I'm not going all the way through. And you can knock out a batch of these as far as cross drilling and all that fairly quickly. All right, so now we're completely drilled. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and remove my drill bit, put my cone center in the tailstock, and in the headstock, I'm gonna put a jam chuck. Now, I could make a jam chuck, you know, by turning a piece of wood, but the way I did this, I cheated. Okay, I took a block of wood, put it in here, into my chuck, and then I drilled a 3/8 inch hole and stuck a 3/8 inch dowel inside there. And this piece of wood that I have right now is a jam chuck, is just an old scrap Osage orange that was laying around.
Yeah, if you're not cheating, you're not trying hard enough. Good idea.
Right, exactly. So with the Osage orange, it's a different color than that birch, you know, dowel rod. And I've got that dowel rod all the way through. So as I cut this back, I've always got a 3/8 inch dowel. So that's one way of doing it. The way I first started doing it was like this. And I took a piece of 3/8 inch aluminum that I had, and I made a jam chuck. And this is what I used last year, but made a new jam chuck for this one. So, all right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put it between centers. Okay, so I got my jam chuck and I have my live center in the back. So we can do one or two things. We could go ahead and turn it, or we can clean it up. And because I'm doing one of these cross-drilled ornaments like this, I want to go ahead and clean it up. So all I've done is taken a piece of 150 grit sandpaper, I ripped it in half, and now I'm just going to go ahead and quickly sand the inside edge, and I'm going to quickly sand the post. I do this now. If you were going to paint, like any gold or silver or anything like that, now would be a good time to go ahead and paint, regardless of whether you're doing the birdhouse ornament or this type. Now would be the time to paint before you turn everything off. We're not going to paint tonight. This is just kind of a, I don't want to keep everybody for, 2 hours and stuff while I turn one little ornament. So,
You'd still have our interest, Tim.
all right. So I'll just real quick, do all 4 sides there. And one more, and we should be good. Now, I am not going to finish this this evening, because I want to spray all these when, mass produce and spray everything with light. All right, so I do notice when moving up my tool rest, I was a little too close, to my chuck. So thankfully with Powermatic, I've got the little 4 inches of freaking gap here. Now, as I turn this, I can do 1 or 2 things. I could just go ahead and rough it round, which is the way when I'm kind of doing production work. I'm just going to rough everything out semi-round, and then we'll get into turning it blow. Shields up. I'm going to keep my speed probably right around 1600 or so. Now, because I'm turning between centers, if it loosens up a little bit, I'm not really all that worried about it. All I want to do is just light up the tail stuff. Light cut. And we're pretty close to being round enough to start doing things with. All right, so all I've done is kind of knock the corners off, which is fine. You see it's kind of high on this side, kind of low on that side. That's all right. We can fix that. Again, speed right now is, I'm gonna get it right around 1500, 1600 RPM. Now, one thing you can do that helps folks out, you could mark this like there and there and go, okay, I want to turn this to get it, you know, to the corner. That gives you a reference point on where to start. Well, both gouge probably isn't the tool to use, but you know, whatever you got works, right?
Indeed.
When you have spindle gouges and bowl gouges with same color handles in the stuff. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop there just so you guys can see what's going on. I've still got a flat spot here in the center. So this is the equator. I just need to turn from my equator to turn it down, get it in a little more rounder shape. Now, if you don't want a round shape, you don't have to have one. You could have kind of a pyramid shape to it or whatever, but it's up to you however you want to turn it. I will tell you, speed is your friend. However, don't get aggressive. If you get aggressive, it's going to get aggressive right back at you and come in your face. And it's going to smack you. So definitely wear your face shield when trying. Walt likes to say ankle, pelvis, and cup. All right, so we're close. We don't have to be perfect here. I mean, if you're doing production turning and maybe you're not really good at turning spheres yet and everything, and I'm still working on it, guys. You know, I've only been turning literally a couple of years, and that's in between training the National Guard and everything. I don't have a whole lot of time in my shop. So depending on how you want to do things, I like to kind of sand this right now. You can see maybe that this is a little rough right here. Might have a little bit of tear out. I'm just going to take some 150. I'm going to hit it real quick, 150, and square that up. Now that whole square. Same thing on the other one. Same thing on the other one. And same thing on the other one. Like I said, you don't have to be a fantastic turner to make this project happen. It's pretty quick and pretty simple. So the next thing I'm gonna do, I got some 150 sandpaper here, and it's the flex pack stuff for the foam on it. I was lucky enough to buy a little bit of that at SWAT before it took off. Now, normally I'd have my dust collection on, but you guys couldn't hear me over that, so I'm just gonna hit it real quick. And if it's not, if it's not 100% perfectly round and you're not satisfied with it, you can sand it down a little bit. It's not gonna hurt anything. I do also find that this sandpaper, and I got this from Home Depot, I believe, it's the Diablo, but it's the mesh, and it's a 120 mesh. So I just double that up and now everything's almost nice and round. Not quite, almost. But one other thing that I found out, while using the jam chuck like this, is on the end here, see, there's a little bit of a bump that sticks out. So you can get rid of that bump by just turning on your lathe, a little light pressure. Now your bump's gone. Now, if you have a flat spot and you're not satisfied with that, maybe you're one of those folks like myself that can't turn a perfectly good spear. That's all right. All you got to do is turn it around the other way. Flat spot towards the side. If you have a dominant hand, like you're turning to the right is dominant for you. And I'm just showing you some techniques on things I've learned on how to fix my mistakes. That's all. Shields up. All right, speed up. Most of it out.
We're not hearing your audio come through very clear, Tim.
I'm sorry, you got me now?
Yeah.
All right. I say I got most of that out now. So again, just a real quick touch up on the sanding. Again, on the jam chuck, a little touch up there on that rib. Get a little 320 on there. And obviously, that's not too terrible. It's ready to move on to the next step. So the next step, I'm gonna make a bunch of these and put this away. But so the next step is literally just making a finial for it. Have I got any questions so far on what I've covered?
We have one question on the grain orientation.
Grain orientation. Okay. So the first direction that I drilled was in grain. Okay.
Yeah,
that's the 3/8 inch hole in grain. And then I flipped it sideways for side grain, and that's where I drilled my bigger holes. If I was drilling for the cross drilled ornament that I just turned like that, that diameter is 1 1/8 inch. If I am drilling for that ornament, that's going to be a 1 1/4 inch for that hollow one. So because I'm making a lot of these at a time, I have two different I've got 3 different chucks. I was lucky and fortunate enough to have 3 different chucks. I've got one with a 1 1/8, and I've marked that, that chuck so I don't grab the wrong one. And then I've got one that's 1 1/4 and marked that. And of course, the 3/8 inch is set in there. So does that answer?
Great explanation.
So I went from end grain, drilled 3/8 inch hole, put it in the chuck sideways, and drilling side grain, those 4 holes, either 1 1/8 or 1 1/4.
Correct. And then, so basically when it was being turned, it's an end grain orientation because you're using the 3/8 inch dowel in the 3/8 inch hole that's initially drilled to hold it while you're turning. So yes, perfect explanation. Thanks, Tim.
Okay, thank you. All right. So now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and switch over to the beauty of having extra chucks. Since my son isn't here using his lathe, I'm using his chuck. Sucks to be him. So, the next thing I'm going to do is just turn a finial real quick. And guys, I am not the expert on finials by any means, any stretch of the imagination. Okay, but got a couple different ways doing it. I started turning finials with a skew. I don't know why. It's just one of those things. I watched a couple different turners, and Eddie's one of the turners I watched, and him working with the skew just fascinated me. And I picked up the tool and I kind of learned it. Now, unfortunately, most of my tools that I got in the shop are these crappy little Harbor Freight ones that I picked up, and I've increased a little bit, but most of the tools I have on hand are still the Harbor Freight cheapies that I got 4 years ago. It's high speed steel. It holds an edge for a little bit of time. It's definitely not as good as Thompson and some of the other ones out there. But if you put a hot rock to it every once in a while, or a stone, you can make almost anything sharp. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my roughing gouge just to get this thing round, because I think that's the way a lot of you guys do it. So again, speed up around 1800. So not head, so make a noise. All right, so for my finial, I'm just going to kind of turn it around, turn it off a little bit. I'll go ahead and pick up my skew.
Can you turn your camera down a little bit?
Say again? The
Can you
camera
turn
down?
your camera down a little bit. There, good.
Thank you, Tim.
Almost doing kind of a feeling here. You can make the finial as long or short as you want. I'd like to give myself a little relief cup. For this next section here, I'm going to go ahead and pick up a banana real quick. And there we go. Sure pieces fully engaged. If not,
Only in a demo.
on you. Only in a demo, right?
All recoverable, Tim.
Always something. That's all right. We'll go ahead and tighten it up again. Return it, see where we're at. Yeah, it's off a little bit.
Make the rest of us feel better.
Yeah.
Make myself feel bad.
I was actually surprised I didn't have anything go flying last week.
All right, there we go. That's not too bad.
Yeah, you're good.
That up pretty quick. Does anybody know why that sedan caught that way?
I think your chuck had loosened up.
My truck was loose and I ended up going below center. Like the same as truck was loose. Right, so I turned that down and it's not 3/8 of an inch for sure. See, I got this little wrench here and the wrench is cut using the angle grinder or the grinder there. If you're doing this, don't do it on your CBN wheel, do it on your rough wheel. You're going to sharpen it. But concept here basically is I'm going to get it as close to 3/8 inch as possible, and I'm just going to turn that down. Got to give me a gauge.
I bought a set of wrenches just for that purpose 2 years ago. I still haven't sharpened them.
Yeah, they work good without sharpening. I've got some myself that I use for the same purpose. 3/8, quarter inch, unsharpened.
Oh yeah, you can still gauge with them just fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you can move them up and down. You don't have to like take it off and put it back on. You know what I mean? Once you got it on, you can push it down and it'll move, even things out.
Right.
so one thing you want to make sure you do is undercut the back side of this, so it fits on that rounded portion. All right. Obviously, a little standing probably helped that finial. If I wouldn't have chewed it up as much as I did, wouldn't even stand it. But things happen. Let's go ahead and take that down a little bit. Quarter-inch detail gouge.
Do you have Mark Soleil's grind on that, Tim?
Yeah. Well, I tried. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, I understand. I did the same thing with mine, but they sure cut a whole lot better.
So, all right, the other so we're pretty much there on that. I've got somewhere. I went down a doggone parting tool. All right, so I've got a basic finial. The parting tool I got here, literally it's just a piece of steel from Harbor Freight. Out of their high-speed steel packet. It's a 1/16 by 1/2 inch by 4.5 inches long with a handle put on it. And then I, ground a point on it, and then I've got a 15-degree kind of bevel on both ends, so when it's cutting away. That Harbor taught me that one night. Watching his video. And there we go. So we now have a finial for the bottom. Now I got to get something for the top. So I'm going to take my skew. I'm going to go ahead and find center. Clean up the bottom, down center. Now I got tired of changing out drill bits and everything. So I got one of these little cheap handles here. And I got me a set of these cobalt drill bits that fit in the handle. So instead of changing out chucks all the time, I'm just gonna do a quick little hand drill on that. I got my center point marked. We go. That's it. So now what that does, if I mass produce these finials and toppers, then I can use them for either ornament. If that makes sense.
Sure. Camera angle's good too.
All right. Heels up. So now. Taco. I can get a gouge it. I don't have to worry about sharpening. All right, so now I have a topper. So if I'm going to take and maybe put one of these candy canes or one of the snowmen, an angel, piece of hard candy. You know, they sell these little decorations all over the place. If I'm gonna put one of those in this, then all I would do is, I've got my hole already drilled. I put the topper on. I put that piece with a small piece of wire on it, glue it into the topper, and then I mount my bottom finial. Put a screw eye on top there, and I have an ornament that's complete and ready to go. So that's what's going on there. I do have a couple other little tips and pointers. So say maybe your for some reason your finial doesn't quite fit in there. Maybe you got carried away, you cut it too fast, it's not fitting correctly. Well, you don't want to sit there and try to remount this and re-drill this, or remount this and return it so it fits, especially if you're trying to mass produce things, you know, for a craft show or something. again, it's a price point thing. It's not that you're not doing good work, but you're doing the best work you can in the least amount of time. You know, so you're not spending 4 hours out there trying to make. So that doesn't fit in there. Well, I found this little plumbing reamer. I don't remember if I got it at Lowe's, Home Depot, Harbor Freight. I don't remember where I got it. I know I didn't pay a whole lot for it, but if that's the side I want the finial to be on, all I've got to do is stick that reamer in there, work it around just a little bit, test. Not quite there. Reamer's tapered, so it's going to give me a tapered fit. There we are. Now,
That's a great tip, Tim.
you know, so again, if it's not perfect, it doesn't have to be perfect. You know, you can either paint these things, you can stain them, you can finish them any way you finish everything else. But, you know, give you an idea. I don't know how well you can see this, but this particular one, it's walnut with maple and Purple Heart. And all I did was just laminate a piece of Purple Heart and a piece of maple to a chunk of walnut and then turned it down. Now I have, you know, a different design on there. And that's
Cool.
gonna probably be one of the top sellers. So,
Nice.
you know, it's little simple things. The biggest takeaway that I wanted everybody to get was Walt does beautiful work, and I am by no means am I not impressed with him. He does exceptional work. I am nowhere close to being Walt Wager's friggin' equal in way of wood turning. But I can make some stuff that'll sell at an arts and crafts sale, you know, little local one, and I can get 30, 40 bucks. For the ones that have that turquoise and stuff, all I do on that is I take a piece of the spalted wood that maybe has a defect in it, and I fill it with either the brass, the turquoise, the lapis, whatever, and then turn it. I don't spend a lot of time on these things, guys, just because time is money, and I don't have a whole lot of time that I can get in the shop. Now, is it my best turning? No, it's definitely not. But like I said, I sent Dane and Dave Rhodes both a copy of this, so hopefully it'll be up on the website if you guys want some instructions. If you want to see somebody really good at turning, which isn't me, Walt Wager did a before on his birdcage ornament, and then of course on that write-up I did, I also included that other gentleman that I talked about that did the snowflake holoform snowflake. So, folks,
Great
if
job,
there's
Tim.
any questions?
Yeah, there was a question on what size cubes you start with.
The SKU that I got here, well, I think it's
No, not your skew. The cube, the wood block.
oh,
What size
the block of
block?
wood. The
Yep.
block, this particular block of wood, and the only reason I went with this size, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I went to my local wood source sawmill, Birdall's, and he had a bunch of cutoffs that were friggin' just under. They were just under 2 inches, and they were 6 foot long, and I got an armful of them for $30. So by the time
Nice.
I ran it through my joiner and my planer to square it up, and then ran it through the table saw, I ended up with 1.25 inches just by trimming it up. But like this other one here with the snowflakes in it, these snowflakes you can buy. Hang on one second, let me pull the box of them out. Yeah. So you can get a box of these snowflakes like this from Hobby Lobby, or, you know, if you've got a laser like Eddie does and everything, you can make your own. But you can buy those, I think Hobby Lobby or Michael's and whatever, they're on sale right now, 50% off arts and crafts stuff. Those, you're gonna have to measure the diameter of whatever you're putting inside this hole. Those obviously are not gonna fit in this hole. So this needs to be, you know, this block of wood needs to be 2 1/4, which is the size Walt Wager demonstrates with his birdhouse ornament. The problem with this is when I did the original ones like this, I use that 7mm friggin' pin mandrel, turn this on a pin mandrel. So again, you're not limited to turning it the way I did. You could use a pin mandrel. You could make your own chuck. You could do it between a dead center and a live center, you know, cone center and a safety center. The beauty of that is if you get that catch, like you saw me get a catch during the demonstration, all it does is stop the block of wood. It's captured it between the 2 points. It's the safest way of turning.
Yes.
So as long as you got those 2 points and your wood's pretty solid. Now I have had some of the spalted stuff explode on me, but any other questions there, Dane?
I believe I captured them all. If anybody else has a question, now's the time to make your comments or questions on the demo. But other than that, fantastic job, Tim. I really appreciate it. You did a good job, buddy.
Hey,
Good
no
demo,
problem.
Tim.
Good job, Tim.
Thank you.
Very good.
Appreciate it, guys.
Real
I
good
like
demo,
that.
Tim.
Yeah, I like that. I like the snowflakes too there.
Yeah, and
demo,
like I
gave
said,
me some good
I just
ideas.
I couldn't see wasting, you know, stacking up like 3 or 4 of those doggone snowflakes and turning it all away. So that's why I came up with this idea. And then my wife's like, "Oh, you
Nice
can
job.
stack things on it." So,
Right?
all right,
Yeah, great
good job,
Demo,
guys.
Tim. What blade is that?
Nice job, Tim.
I'm sorry.
Automatic.
That's a Powermatic
Yeah, this is
2014.
the Powermatic 2014.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great little lathe.
All right, I'm out of here.
All right. Thanks, Tim.